Let's go. Let's go. Just making sure it's working. Oh, yeah, there we go. See you moving. All right, dude. We're recording.
Okay.
We're live. I think we're good. Open the door. Okay. Starting in 5, 4, 3, 2. Wait. Hello, folks. Welcome to We the Peeps. This is the US Soccer podcast in which you're going to get to know everything that you need to know, maybe don't want to know, maybe learned about the USMNT. I'm Ty. I'm an entrepreneur.
I'm Kwame. I am a doctor.
And we're both very disappointed.
Disappointed.
The energy is way different on this show than the last show. Oh, my
Down in
Lanta.
the dregs.
Insert here. And insert. The game was United States against Panama. In Panama, the U.S. went down to Central America for the first time since a surprise 4-0 triumph in Honduras in the last qualifying window. We thought maybe we would see some similar things from the U.S., and it was similar in that the first half was awful in both games. Unfortunately, the second half in this Panama game did not live up to the standard set by the prior squad. So as always, we're going to line them up, but first we are going to do a little housekeeping. Sweep noise. I don't have that file, so that's actually what it's going to be.
That's going to be awesome.
So thank you for being here this week, peeps. If you like our show, the most important thing that you can do to support our show is to go to iTunes and give us a rating and a review. And that helps us show up more highly when people search for soccer on Apple Podcasts or other podcast stores. You can always go to Patreon and support us. We really deeply appreciate everybody who supports us on Patreon. It costs $5 a month. You can help us out, help us produce this show. This show is not free, and we need your help to keep it going. So thank you for doing that, and thank you to anybody who has become a patron so far. We are on all the socials. You can hear lots of, usually complaining about various things on our social media channels. But we have kind of like an enthusiasm going. I'll give us some credit. We're usually more positive than most. The last night was tough. And I think that's it. One last thing I want to mention is we do have a new visual identity coming out, a new brand coming out, designed by my dear friend Andre, my colleague at Cantilever, which is my web design company. He did a great job for us. So look forward to revealing all of that to everyone. And if you see a new look, that's what's up. We'll make a full announcement when that happens. I think that's it. Let's line them up. Get out there, boys.
We can't stop the episode now.
That was the most positive part of the episode. Yeah. All right, get out there, guys. Straight from MLS and into our hearts. Starting with Matty Two Hands, Matt Turner in goal again. Welcome to the Turnerverse. In front of him, we had Walker Zimmerman and Mark McKenzie, formerly of Philadelphia Union. On the left, Baby Bello, George Bello, making yet another appearance for this national team with very little reason. Shaq Moore out on the right, finally got his time to shine in a field full of decent right backs. He got the start and didn't show much to separate him from the rest. Yedlin came on for him later in the game. Starting in the middle was Kellen Acosta, controversial figure on this show, my former Pookie baby, Now he irritates me. People think I'm too harsh on Kellen Acosta. I wonder what they're thinking today. In front of him in the midfield, we had Sebastian Lletget, too legit to quit, but he quit a lot on the play last night. And Yunus Musa started. You know him, you love him. Yunus Musa was a shadow of his former self. We'll get to that, replaced by Tyler Adams later in the game. The front line started out as Paul Arriola, Giassi Zardes, and Tim Weah, which we'll get to Zardes. We've been increasing in confidence in him, and then he unfortunately showed us a lot of the old traffic cone today, yesterday, including a traffic cone deflected own goal. Replacing those players later on would be Brendan Aronson, who came on and did Brendan Aronson things, Ricardo Pepi, who came on and did pretty much nothing, and Christian Roldan, just the guy you want to come on when you need a goal late. That was the personnel for this matchup. It unfolded with basically Panama on the front foot the entire game. The U.S. never really got a foothold, never really had a great stretch within the game. There was a Zimmerman chance in the 3rd minute. Later on in the 14th minute, as Panama started to take control, there was an inexplicable miss by Blackburn, the Panamanian striker, where he basically just whiffed at a ball that was across that was put in perfectly for him. There was in the 18th minute another warning sign for the U.S., a big chance for Panama off of a throw-in, a very rapidly taken throw-in that Panama managed to use to maneuver around the entire U.S. defense. There were a couple incidents in the box that the U.S. had some right to be aggrieved. There was a shirt tug on Paul Arriola, and there were a couple other incidents where people felt like there might have been a foul, but not enough to get a call, especially on the road. We had a series of Olympico attempts by Panama, feeling themselves in the middle of the first half. One of them led to a Matt Turner bobble, and then the next one led to a Matt Turnerverse save top corner. Pardon me, I can't even read my own handwriting. Oh yeah. In the 34th minute, there was a absolutely terrible touch somewhere in the U.S. midfield that led to a corner, and then a huge Turner save from a close shot. Turner coming up big there. We had a bad offsides call against the U.S., maybe one of the only good attacking moves that got snuffed out by that. And in the 45th minute, we saw Turner, hero and villain at the same time, attempt to pass into midfield. The pass did not work out, ended with the turnover for Panama, but Matt Turner ends up making a giant save with his arm to end the first half, to prevent the dagger. U.S. goes in at halftime 0-0, lucky to be in at 0-0. U.S. brings in Tyler Adams. Tyler Adams immediately comes in and clobbers somebody, nearly gets a yellow there. And then in the 54th minute, we finally saw the Panama breakthrough. The U.S. just never really got much of a foothold in, and then Panama had a corner, just pretty standard situation, in which they whipped in a ball. They missed, I believe, maybe made glancing contact, but Giassi Zardes was in the right place at the right time to lay a delicious finish onto this Panamanian corner kick. In the 62nd minute, another incident where the U.S. maybe felt a little bit aggrieved. Walker Zimmerman impeded on a corner where he's attempting to get his head to the ball, gets pulled back, but no call for the U.S. The U.S. continued to play the ball out of the back this entire game. We'll talk about that. It led to a lot of nervous moments, and especially when Matt Turner was involved. Later on in the game, as the dark arts started to happen, as Panama started to realize that they were 20 minutes away from a famous win over the U.S., 15 minutes away, you had a head injury that took maybe 7-8 minutes off the clock just dealing with that one head injury. Somehow led to no additional subs, even though maybe they're supposed to have additional subs. And in the latter stages of extra time, of injury time rather, We had some pitch invaders. We had people kicking extra soccer balls out of the field, chaotic scenes in Panama as we were used to. But of course, Panama finding a way to cling on to that 1-0 lead, nothing doing for the US. A really heartbreaking, difficult loss for this young US team. Kwame, what were your first impressions?
It's a little hard to know exactly where to begin. I guess we could begin with the specific thing is to look at the lineup and all the changes that were made, some forced, some not. But also that this is not, at least the first half is not something new. I think I saw a statistic that this is now 8 straight games that the US has not scored in the first half. And we continually,
What?
yeah,
What?
and we continually need to rescue, we continually need to rip up the script and fix a bad first half. And you can only do that so many times. And the second thing I'll point to is that we now have 2 wins in qualifying. And our 2 wins are the 2 teams that are at the bottom of the table in the octagonal. And that's it. So I think also, however happy we've been about the Honduras wins, which again was terrible to begin with, and then Jamaica, where we were comfortable, we didn't score in the first half. We're beating up against the minnows, and we're not getting results against anyone else, at least the results that we should be looking for. And there's a lot of reasons why. And I guess that's what we'll be delving into. But this is not anything new. The result is new in terms of we haven't lost to Panama in a long, long time, but the performance is not anything new.
So what is it? What's your read on it? You know, is it a bad mentality? Is it a bad starting 11? Is it the tactics? Is it something else? Crowd pressure? Why are we coming out so bad?
I think that Berhalter is a below average coach who is very dedicated to the team and who tries really hard. But in 3 years has not been able to instill a tactical plan and or demonstrate sharp acumen in terms of in-game adjustments. And so we have a plan that, despite him being the coach for 3 years, is not being well understood and well executed. It's happening slowly. It's also not, I think it's also relatively easy for the opposition to plan for. I don't think we're surprising anyone. And so when we are winning, we're winning on depth, or we're winning on individual quality of play, or we're winning when the other team's manager is worse than Berhalter is. Because Berhalter, you know, I want to say he's like terrible or doesn't care or anything like that, but he is a mediocre coach. And if we look at his, you know, if we look at the whole, like, why he was hired and everything like that, that's sort of well known. But we look at his, you know, we talk a lot about MLS, right? And there's all this tension, like, oh, MLS is not good enough, or it is good enough. And I think you and I are of the opinion that MLS can certainly represent the national team, but you've got to be the elite of MLS to do so. And Greg Berhalter was not an elite MLS coach. You know, I pulled up his record at the Crew. He was 74 wins, 49 draws, and 70 losses for a win percentage of 38%. And he was 2-5 in the playoffs. That's a mediocre record for an MLS coach. And the fact that that's being translated into the national team is not a surprise.
Wow. So for anyone especially like a newer soccer fan, can you just break down what it is that how the mediocrity actually manifests itself when you have a coach who is, maybe not as advanced as you would like for the national team? What are the decisions that are being made? What are the tangible effects that has on the team?
So one, I think that he, in terms of like his instruction, right? Because, there are many jobs to being a good coach, a good manager, right? And one of them is drawing things up and teaching people like, okay, this is how we want to play. These are the complexities. These are the patterns. When this happens, you got to do this. And this is the reason why, right? So the players are sort of fully on board and understanding what their role is. And so that everyone is kind of on board and knowing how the team is going to play, so that if someone else needs to come in, right, they're not having to figure out, oh, I haven't played with, this person before. Like, how do we play together? Have to sort of feel it out. It's like, I'm the left back. This is what the left back in our system does. And when the ball moves here and the other team does this, we do this, right? But then also within that, if you see if you're then scouting the other team, right, you're coming up with a plan and an approach that is somewhat unique to that other team. You're not necessarily ripping everything up and switching formations every game, although you could, although that's much easier in a club team, right, when you've got day in and day out, right? But you make adjustments, right, both before the game so that you have a tactical advantage or certain things that you're wanting to emphasize so that you're hitting the ground running. And then when you're seeing something that's either not working or an advantage that you differently want to exploit, you can quickly and efficiently communicate it to the teams like, okay, we're doing this now, right? And it should be boom, boom, boom. Okay, this is what, and the team is like a well-oiled machine moving in that. And we have, I would say, never seen that, or very, very rarely have we seen that. And when we have, it hasn't seemed like a particularly deliberate thing that's happening.
Now, just to play devil's advocate, though, the U.S. did win both summer trophies with two different squads, beating Mexico in two different finals, beating Tata Martino twice. How do you reconcile that with the vision of Greg Berhalter as being a mediocre coach when you assume Tata Martino is a quite good coach?
Tata Martino is a good, and who wanted the U.S. job and whose resume, for people who don't know. So the year that before Berhalter was hired, he was a coach in MLS, and so was Tata Martino, the current coach of Mexico. They were both coaches in MLS. Tata Martino's team won the championship. I think they won the best record, and they won the playoffs. Berhalter, I think, qualified for the playoffs, but was knocked out in the quarterfinals or something like that. Tata Martino has coached Argentine national team. He's coached Barcelona. He's coached, I think, many teams in Mexico. He's coached at as high a level as you can. Aside from Berhalter's time at the Columbus Crew, so one team in MLS for 5 years, he coached for 1.5 or 2 seasons in the Swedish second division. Okay, and those were the 2 resumes that were on the table in front of U.S. Soccer. U.S. Soccer chose Greg Berhalter and also waited for him for a year while the job was vacant. And there are other people in consideration as well, but that's who chose Berhalter. But coming back to the Mexico question, so there's a couple things. One is that the bulk of the US's games under Berhalter, I think, have been played at home. COVID has a huge part in that in terms of travel and things like that. But with the Nations League and the Gold Cup, those were home tournaments. And we talk a lot about having hostile crowds, and that is a factor when we play in USO, but we're also playing on US soil in places that we're comfortable, places that we know. There's not any sort of travel. Other teams are traveling to us, and it's, you know, it's not the same as going to Azteca, right? It may be a very pro-Mexico crowd in Chicago or Denver, any number of places, but it's not the Azteca.
Yeah, 60% is
right.
not 95%.
Right. And it's also not that we had these, sort of brilliant game plans or had Mexico sort of really much on like the back foot. These were very tight run affairs. Mexico also had a very changed lineup in some of these games. So again, it's the word I would say is mediocrity, right? Where we can squeak out results, but we're not playing well. And over time, particularly when the stakes get higher, then we're being found out.
Is there a specific thing that you saw in the Panama game that stood out to you as sort of like evidence of a Greg out mentality?
Well, I've had this mentality for a while, but one of the things is, the whole team played poorly, right? Just about, but I think there were flashes that were there, but the whole team played poorly and didn't seem to be working coherently together, didn't seem to be on the same page, didn't really seem to know how to fix things. I thought that his substitutions didn't really help the situation. Putting in Adams, but taking off Musa when you had established a bit of a good dynamic there in that first game. And I thought Aronson for Areola made sense. But then also, using up all of your substitutions, all 5 of your substitutions by the 68th minute, leaving yourself no recourse or flexibility to respond to anything that was happening after that, using one of those substitutions to swap right backs when Shaq Moore was not having a great game, but he wasn't necessarily standing out as someone terrible, right? And not clear what that.
One moment, please.
Yeah, it's like we're like on the BBC or something.
Excuse me, noting.
Parenthood.
What was that? Okay. You were saying Yedlin. You were talking about Yedlin.
Yeah, the substitution for Yedlin, right? That it wasn't clear what was the aim there, right? And it tied our hands for the rest of the game. There weren't any more substitutions that we could make. And what was the tactical advantage from substituting Yedlin in for Moore? It's not clear. It didn't seem to like we were playing a different way. And it didn't also seem as if the way we were playing was set up to succeed, that it was anything that Panama wouldn't be prepared for.
Right. Well, yeah. So in the first half, the thing that was just like jumping off the screen to me was this like humongous Tyler Adams shaped zone in front of the back line where we just kept struggling to build up and maintain possession and get a rhythm, and Panama kept exploiting that space. And I think Kellen Acosta was supposed to be there, but it seemed like he was able to freelance all over the place. There was even a moment where I saw him pop up at right back with Shaq Moore playing almost like a right winger. So that seemed like a good place to start, was like having a midfield that could control the game.
Yes. Yeah, we
And
relinquished. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
but the thing for me is like, I mean, even with that, I feel like the Jet was just so bad. Acosta was even worse than uh, what we've been used to seeing. Well, I say even worse because I kind of have like a negative impression of him a lot, but definitely below the standard that we've come to expect from the renewed Kellen Acosta. And it just felt like everybody was flat. All the touches were so bobbly. The incisiveness of movement wasn't there. The energy wasn't there, and there were just a lot of sloppy touches and a lot of I saw even passing the ball out of bounds and just really amateurish stuff. And one funny thing is my colleague at work, he rarely watches the U.S. and he decided to watch last night. And he texted me. He's from South Africa and he's a Liverpool fan.
Okay.
And so he's used to watching
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
EPL and higher level soccer. And he's like, can professional players at this level be so bad? I was
Yeah.
like, dude, like every 10 US games, this shit happens. Like, I have no idea.
Right.
I don't know what to tell you.
Which
It's
is
like
a
a C
problem.
team, but they're still like professionals who should, in theory, be at a higher level.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe we should. I mean, do we want to talk about the specifics of like the lineup changes and how those decisions might have been made?
Well,
I don't know if this is. I don't want to steer the ship here.
Key in. Why don't we key in on one?
Okay.
Okay. So this is I think this is a good microcosm for the entire conundrum of the whole situation and the MLS thing and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Gyasi Zardes.
Yeah.
So we have Ricardo Pepi, who after the last game is clearly the US's number 9, right? I mean, if you're playing a game for your life tomorrow, you're going for Pepi. And however, you cannot start the same players 3 times in a window. It's just not a good idea. These games are too fast. The travel is too intense. And so you have to rotate. So you have to find moments where even if someone is the best, you have to find a way to bring in their backup. And it felt like Gyasi Zardes was the backup. That there, maybe Jordan Sibachu would have a word, or maybe some Daryl Dike, some other kind of fringe guys. But I felt Gyasi Zardes coming in here, even as someone who's been very doubtful of him in the past, like that's reasonable. That's a reasonable choice. And he just showed up as the old Zardes. So it's like, is this a tactical mistake? Is this a roster mistake? Is this a talent problem? What's going on here? And how did this end so badly?
I mean, Zardes is a player that has a very long connection with Berhalter. They trust each other a lot, I think. Berhalter has also, I think, been, when he was Zardes' coach, been a significant reason why Zardes improved noticeably. So, I do think it's important to give them both credit for that. But, I don't think that Zardes is... I think that the reason that Zardes is the clear number 2 is that he's been around a long period of time, and not necessarily that he's more qualified or effective. I mean, we could say, yes, Zardes should have been the number 2, but why was he more qualified to be the number 2 over Matthew Hoppe, for example?
Good point.
I don't think there is a reason except for Berhalter, I think, is by nature a little conservative and tends towards the familiar, and he doesn't see Hoppe as a forward, and so sure, you can rotate, but also, what was Zardes, what was Zardes supposed to be doing in this game? And was it clear to him? And then is that uncertainty kind of feeding on itself, right? I think also other people have talked about if players like Areola or Zardes or Leggett or others who I think we would probably consider at times useful, but generally sort of fringe national team players. Like if you surround them in a really good, structured and talented team, then they can do a lot. But if you're asking them to be the core, then things fall apart. And I think that's what we saw. We didn't see a good game from Sardis. We saw him having to try to, to sort of lead the line, to sort of, combine with Ariel and Weah, and it wasn't working, and his touch was poor, and it was a little frantic, and and it wasn't clear that the team felt set up for success and kind of knew what they were going to be doing against Panama. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure what Panama. There may also have been things that I didn't necessarily pick up on things, that Panama was doing to unsettle us, and then was the problem that we didn't respond. Like I know they were pressing our center backs, right? You talked about we tried to play it out of the back and it was shaky, right? And probably part of the reason that they decided to press there the way they did is that Turner is a great goal stopping goalie, but he's not as strong with his feet.
Right.
Stefan wasn't here, and that's not Berhalter's fault, but that Stefan wasn't here. Yeah. And so but if seeing that, right, should we have adapted and played less out of the back, knowing that they knew that we knew that they knew that Turner's not as good with his feet.
But so do you think that what we should have done then would be to start Zardes in like I was thinking about the rhythm of this, because it's Thursday, Sunday, Wednesday.
Yeah.
And so I feel like to ask anybody to start Thursday, Sunday is a lot. I mean, I guess that does happen. That happens in MLS. That happens in Europe when they, especially if they're playing cup games. But I mean, that's pretty intense, especially with a full travel day in the middle. So I felt like the natural thing is to go for the bookend. You play your A squad on the two outer games, and you play the backups in the middle. But the trouble with that approach is that the middle game of this window happens to be the hardest by far of the three games. So we ended up trotting out hopefully our weakest lineup of the window in the hardest game. And of course, in a game like this, whenever we have to rotate, it's going to be a huge opportunity for the other team, because every team is going to bring their A game against the US. So it's kind of a conundrum. It's like, let's say Zardes as the number 2 just is a thing, that's decided. What do we do to minimize the damage of the downgrade? And that goes for a lot of these players, not just Zardes.
Right. Well, I mean, I would question why it's decided. Why necessarily Zardes should be the number 2. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if he's clearly done enough to prove that. I mean, we're not there in practice and in camp.
Or let's say it's Hoppy. Let's say you want to bring in Hoppy. Like, do you think that's the right approach, is to do like the bookends, and then what do you do about the fact that this Panama game is probably the hardest game?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could do one of two things, right? So you can either, as you guys have been talking about, right? You can have an A squad and a B squad, right? You got your away crew, right? And you're like, okay, you guys, you've got the Panama game, right? You guys are on this field over here, and you're practicing together. And I don't want you even looking over here at the A team. You guys are my dirty dozen, So, you could have that approach, or you can try to rotate as little as possible, like win the first game, and then, sort of risk things a little bit more for the second game. And, one of the things that's there that allows us to do that a little bit more, right, is bringing a larger squad, right? Again, again, we did not bring as many as we could have.
Wait. We were allowed to bring more players?
Yeah.
Wait, so tell me more. More players, you say?
More players. Yeah, I mean, I can't tell if you're being sarcastic or
so
not.
No, so they just could have just said like, oh, Conrad De La Fuente, come on in.
Yeah.
Like all these guys, they just decided it wasn't even worth it for them to travel.
Yeah, I mean, we called in 27,
Okay.
I mean, even, which I'm pretty sure is not the limit. I think we can call in as many as 30. But we called in 27, and then Reem and Brooks couldn't come. and then we just called Zimmerman as a replacement. So we're I think we're again at 26. And then, but we also knew that for the Panama game, most likely we couldn't bring Robinson.
Right. So it's 24 available for Panama. And you're going to burn at least 10 of those guys on injury, or sorry, on fatigue from the first game.
Right. Although interestingly enough, Areola played 90 minutes against Jamaica and started this game, which was curious, right?
So,
and it's like,
yeah, there's no unified theory here.
Right. Right. There doesn't
okay, I think I'm looking for something that just doesn't exist.
Right. And I think, and that's right, which is the problem, I think, right? Like, I think there's a attempt to figure things out. And I also think that maybe things got sort of thrown on their ear with McKennie picking up that injury.
The injury, yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I think there also wasn't a clear enough sort of plan B, right? So, there is no replacement for Tyler Adams at the 6, right? Period. I think that in certain times for like a bit of the game, right, like Acosta or someone else can kind of come in and fill his shoes, but not from the get-go, not from a difficult game, and particularly not if they're going to sort of maybe focus on our number 6. So then, as much as we talked last episode that you don't like different formations, if you're saying, okay, I don't have another 6, right? Should you be flexible enough to say, all right, well then we're better off with Acosta and someone else in a double pivot, like Acosta Musa, and then Leggett or Luca De La Torre or whatever.
Enough muscle in midfield,
right?
Like Weston can get stuck in. I know it's not his best thing, but more so than Leggett.
Right. Certainly. Yeah. And so I didn't think there was a kind of solid adaptation. And then also, I think Berhalter doesn't always recognize what's going wrong or who's sort of struggling, right? Has been, Acosta and Leggett were really struggling. And, Musa did not have a great first half, but I don't think that he was of the 3 that was an issue. I don't think that he was the main issue. I think he got hooked because, you're thinking about playing him in the 3rd game, and okay, maybe, but things are not going well,
I have another theory on that. So I think he got hooked because there was a moment, like it was like the 20th minute or something, where he tried to like a fancy turn.
Mm-hmm.
Like he received the ball from a center back and he tried to kind of dance around with it and he lost the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And coaches hate that shit. So you go with the reliable MLS midfielder who will just pass the ball sideways instead of try.
I mean, I think that definitely is a difference, right, between Musa and Acosta and Leggett.
Musa has some positivity.
Well, yeah, like he's got there's some times where he makes some risky choices, right? But I don't think he's a reckless player. I mean, I do think he's young, right, and he's like exuberant.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he's a player who is continually putting his team in like a bad position.
Yeah, he's not.
Right? He's often retaining the ball, right?
Yeah, he's doing that so that he can get an advantage, not so that he can look good.
Right, and I think also there are times where the simple passes to advance the ball kind of weren't in evidence.
Sure,
him,
yeah, exactly.
Right, when he was looking around to do something, so he's spending more time on the ball trying to wait for something good to happen.
Right,
and it's not.
And how much do you? Okay, we talked a lot on this show. A lot. We did the entire qualifying cycle last go around. We talked about this myth in US soccer that what you need to do to qualify is win your home games and draw on the road. And a draw on the road in CONCACAF, that's a good result. Doesn't matter if you're playing a bunch of, St. Kitts and Nevis under 11s. It's on the road, so it's going to be tough for the US. So, and we saw in this iteration of the Panama game, I did not see the same kind of difficulties in the conditions that I typically see. I thought the field was better. the crowd was for some reason not that strong for this game. Maybe there's some COVID restriction in place or something like that, but lots of empty seats. It was a very reasonable, accommodating start time, reasonable time of the year, not like super hot or anything. So do you like, what do you think? Like, what kind of effect did the conditions have on the performance? And is that even a reasonable thing to take into account anyway?
I mean, even the pitch invader seemed kind of polite. Casual. He just kind of strolled on, like he's like shorts. It's like, what?
Yeah, that guy, he kind of looked like he knew what he was doing. He looked like a team official or something.
Yeah. I was like, was that what? And then they kind of like, okay.
All right.
So, yeah, no, I mean, I think it, it is more difficult to be on the road, obviously, but no, I don't think that. I mean, I've been in full agreement, right? I don't think that this can be, if we're aspiring to be as good as we want to be, then we can't say, oh, all best we can do on the road is to draw, right? That's just because
our ambition is to get that precious point on the road.
Right.
I think makes me sick as an American and a proud American. It makes me sick to my stomach.
Well, probably also as someone who values like statistics.
What if we went to Iwo Jima trying to get a point on the road? Are you kidding me, people?
I mean, I think it's. I think it's really a bad. I think it's really a bad sort of point of view. And I don't know if the team went in with that. I think that they probably did go in expecting to win, but also expecting that it would be really hard, and not that they could have control of the game, not that they could sort of win. And, I think that this is a game that was going to be difficult, right? It was going to be, Panama's a difficult defensive team. They're going to be well organized. They seem like a very well coached, sort of prepared team.
Yep.
But we did not, go in there in a way that was going to allow us to have success. And I don't think that there was the requisite self-belief, right? I'm not so sure. As I said in the last episode, I don't think effort is really where my brain goes to in terms of what's happening in these games, right? I think it has more to do with self-belief and also certainty, right? Certainty of action, right? Certainty of the team and its approach, of that your teammate is going to be where you need them to be. Again, not because like they don't care about you or they're not going to back you up, right? But more like, all right, if I make this sprint, right, like I'm going to turn around and like these two people have shifted to cover for me. Like I don't have to hesitate about that at all. And instead we're just in a much more kind of tentative, like let's pass it sideways, or maybe this person will go here, and like, oh, like I got to trap this ball perfectly, and like, oh, I didn't, and everything is kind of broken down.
Yeah, there's a lot of tightness.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sort of trying to avoid the big mistake, right? As opposed to trying to open things up and try to create advantages. The last thing I want to talk, as we tear Berhalter apart, the last thing that I wanted to talk about in that regard is the subs. And I was actually confused about this because I watched the Spanish broadcast. My Spanish is okay.
Okay.
I think I heard them saying that if you have a head injury, you are allowed to have another sub. And I also has it been 5? Am I missing something there? I thought there were 6 in some competitions. Was that maybe just like Gold Cup or something?
6 is generally like in friendlies.
Oh yeah, in the friendlies, right?
Right. Yeah, but it's been 5 in like the competitive ones.
But did they discuss this opportunity to replace Acosta?
There was some confusion about it.
CBS?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I think but yes, I think it was also like, yeah, like I think they should be able to. Um, I know that it has been implemented in some leagues and confederations. I couldn't swear that it was CONCACAF, and maybe, maybe the maybe no one was sure. Maybe the U.S. Soccer wasn't sure. But I do think that it is something that at least has been trialed.
You know what I'm remembering is the sixth in extra time. So both in the
Oh
Gold
yes,
Cup
there
and
is.
in the Nations League final, that was like one of the threads in the Nations League final was that Greg like refused to use that last sub in extra time, but he didn't have to. Like he actually had an extra one, which he didn't know about.
Yeah.
And to be fair, that is quite confusing. But I sure hope so. I mean, I hope you can just take off a player who is potentially concussed. I mean, that was pretty gnarly.
Yeah, but we, we did. And another thing that, and I don't know who to, I don't know who deserves the greater criticism for that,
Right, yeah, right.
Whether it's, whether they were asking the fourth official and the fourth official was like, nope, not in qualifiers, but in the Gold Cup,
not here. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, who knows? But I think that should be. I think that it is a thing, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So one last thing before we put this one to bed. There was another thing that I don't think I've ever seen, which is a drop ball to one side. So this was twice. I think it was Leggett both times, or maybe it was Aronson once and Leggett the other time, where the referee, like, there was some incident. The referee called over the player and just sort of like handed the ball to the player, not like a competitive drop ball or anything, but just as soon as the ball leaves the hand of the ref, it's now in play. It's not a dead ball. It's not a free kick. I'm just gonna kind of hand it to you.
Yeah, no, I've seen that.
That's a thing.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
Oh
yeah. They kind of
God.
don't really do the competitive drop ball anymore because I think it's just too easy to get people kicking each other.
That's true.
Especially like I think that happened after the pitch invasion. And it's like, okay, yes, it's a drop ball, but like, let's.
Oh, okay. So it's when you stop the clock while one team has possession.
Yeah.
So it's not a free kick. It's a
right. Yeah, it's a drop ball.
It's a gift ball. Okay.
Yeah.
So any closing words on this debacle? Anything we didn't touch on that you were thinking when you were watching this?
I mean, I think to do, and maybe this will take more time than we want to, but I think that
floor is yours, my friend. Go for it. Give us the wisdom.
Let's think for a second about what lineup we might have argued for, given the limitations that were there, right? Given the injuries, given the people that couldn't travel, right? We've got these sort of 7 lineup changes. Would we have done something different, or was in fairness to Greg, were his hands tied a little bit? I mean, I think that although McKenzie wasn't necessarily like the issue, right? He have to switch out Robinson. Generally center backs, you don't do a whole lot of swapping, you don't do a whole lot of rotation, even for like kind of fatigue purposes. And Jamaica was a pretty comfortable game. So, do you think you would have kept Robinson, or do you think McKenzie was, slotting him in, or would you have put Richards in? Right. I'm not sure if that's the grin that's spreading across your face.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I would always think of someone like Richards, but that's it's kind of a peppy-ish situation from the last window where it's like, well, why didn't you find a way to get the guy 15 minutes in the last game, so that he's at least gets a feel for the rhythm. But so you gave me a couple good sort of knocks against the Berhalter approach, but the one that's really sticking out to me is that he could have brought more players. So I get there's injuries, shit happens, there's fatigue, all this stuff. But so we could have actually had, maybe even just another body to play certain positions, or, a guy like Conrad de la Fuente, who I mentioned before. And then he, not only that, but Matthew Hoppe, who has no other job than to come into a game where we need an offensive spark, right? For him to not come in and see Christian Roldan come in and flail around on the left wing instead of Matthew Hoppe felt like a pretty big knock to me. So I'm coming away from this a little bit more swayed that this was Greg's fault, because I come like right after watching the game, I thought it was basically just execution, but I'm seeing a little bit more of what we could have done differently to make it a better situation.
Yeah. And, and along with that, and I feel like I made this point a little earlier, but not to belabor it, but like, I don't know what he's wanting the players to execute. And after 3 years, I feel like I should have a pretty clear idea.
It has changed a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It has changed a lot. All right. Well, goodbye to the Panama game. Luckily, the United States still sits second in the table. However, second and sixth in the table right now, only separated by 3 points, if I recall. So it is a really, really thin margin that the U.S. is holding on to here. And the next game, this Costa Rica game, this is a weak Costa Rica team. Typically, going into the World Cup qualifying tournament, we expect that Costa Rica is going to be one of our hardest opponents. That's not the case this time. So this is a game we absolutely have to win, right?
Yeah, we certainly need to win it. I mean, I think we needed to win it even before this, but certainly after the Panama loss, this is a game that we need to win. I mean, Costa Rica, is not the strength that they were. I think there's still a lot of players that they've relied on historically, and they're not a huge nation by any means, so they're going to have ebbs and flows. But yeah, this is a game that we definitely need to win.
And so we're going to Columbus. We're not going to Columbus for the Mexico game this time around. I think it's in Cincinnati, the Mexico game.
Yes, yeah.
So we're breaking the streak. We're burning our Columbus card on this Costa Rica game. Do you think that this is a good venue choice to swap the cities from the Mexico game after what happened in the last cycle?
I don't know. I feel, honestly, I think it's hard for me to feel good about US soccer's choices about where to have these games. I mean, I think that in many cities, there are certain cities, right, where you're more likely to have immigrants or people whose roots are in these countries that we're playing than kind of others. But
like New Jersey and Costa Rica.
Right, but also, writing off some of your biggest stadiums and also is, it's not great. I mean, Columbus is a great stadium, right? But if you play in Columbus all the time, you're never going to have 70,000 people screaming. You're going to have 20,000, 25,000,
yeah,
right?
Something like that, yeah.
Which is very different. I mean, I think that game in Nashville, right, which was against Canada, right? Very pro-US crowd, but I think a lot of the commentary afterwards was like wasn't really like an intense crowd, like kind of got hushed relatively easily. So I mean, I know Columbus has long kind of been like a sort of fortress, and they have sort of big roots both within MLS and and with the men's national team. So it's fine, but I would like to see us as a national team try to establish more of a foothold in the places where we feel like we can't go as our own national team in these big qualifiers.
Yeah, so the logic of it, I mean, I'm so used to like the cronyism of the entire MLS, US Soccer United marketing menage a trois, that I expect that this is basically part of like, oh, we're gonna send you a World Cup qualifier because you're doing this for the national team or because of some sponsorship thing or whatever. I mean, am I being too cynical there, or is it like from competitive reasons, shouldn't we just like play every fucking qualifier in Portland or Seattle and pack the building? Like, what am I missing?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't think you can be too cynical when it comes to U.S. soccer. I'd be like, I hope I've made that abundantly clear. And I don't know all the ins and outs, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's the case. Yeah, I think, probably Portland and Seattle because they're turf, I think is probably why
Turf, yeah.
they
And
can't
then
do
the
the
flight from
qualifiers
Europe
there.
is longer as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's probably part of it. But but so, but I think we should try to establish um, someplace else as like the cauldron, right? That you
The
don't want to have to
cauldron.
come to when
Yes,
you play the
exactly.
U.S., right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And it would be a long-term effort to turn the Meadowlands, right, into that, or MetLife Stadium or whatever it is, right?
That's
But I think that's
work.
something worth. I think that's
It's not
something
gonna
worth
work.
striving for, right? But in the meantime, I think you can. I
Oh
think you can
God.
think
Yeah.
about other things,
Yeah, I
right?
think we could play Jamaica there. That'd probably be okay. But
Well, I mean, also,
Costa Rica, Mexico, no thanks.
I mean, sure, but I think the aim also should be, right? If you are, and maybe this is how I feel, right? If we're playing Mexico, right, in in New Jersey, in the Meadowlands slash MetLife, right? Yes, there's going to be a lot of Mexican fans of the Mexican team, right? Many of whom are Mexican Americans, but voting for it when it comes to the two, they root for Mexico the rest of the time, right? But I think there's actually a lot of like fans who are like U.S. national team fans is like their number two, and then Mexico or Colombia or Venezuela or whatever, right? But I don't see why we can't say the teams for whom Mexico is their number one team are going to come out and pull for Mexico. But the person for who Colombia is their number one and the US is for number two.
Right.
We want to get that person in the stadium cheering as loudly as possible.
We're not getting them out.
We're not getting them out. And I think because we're only giving them an opportunity to see the national team when they're playing their number one team.
Right, right, so exactly. And if you want to go at any other time, it's going to be a minimum of $38 for a upper deck seat.
Yeah.
And plus parking, plus food, plus beer.
Right.
You take your kid to a soccer game, it's $150 for a night. So that's not reasonable for the vast majority of people. And then I fully agree with you. Like, I think we have completely lost the concept that the home crowd should be an edge. Like, it's almost like for the US team, it's just the absence of an away crowd.
Yeah.
That's the edge.
It's a safety net. I mean?
Okay. I want to take that back immediately because I love the American Outlaws and everything that they bring. And that is very clearly an advantage and a highlight of everything that, everywhere that the US plays, but it's still isolated. You don't have this experience as a visiting team to a U.S. city that it's intimidating at all, and especially when a lot of these players are used to playing in the MLS stadia. So, I mean, man, yeah, that would be a killer thing if we could figure that out. Even if it's not in one of the big stadiums, even if it's like one of the mid-sized stadiums, I feel like Audi Field, for instance, in DC is maybe like 30K or something like that. It's a decently big place. I feel like that's the kind of building there you could generate pretty good energy. And it's so odd. I can't think of another national team that's like that, another serious national team or even a non-serious national team where they regularly rotate important games. Like, does this ever is anyone else doing this?
I mean, I imagine not, right? I mean, we are geographically, pretty huge, and I don't know, maybe Brazil does it to an extent, right? But they also have like but even the ones that if you rotate around, like there is the big stadium, right? Like if Brazil is playing Argentina in a home qualifier,
you know where it is.
You know where it is, right? And you know that it's going to be a hellstorm to walk into, and we don't have that. We had Columbus, which was a place where we consistently beat Mexico, and we had a crowd that was in tune with that history, but it was not, I think, big enough, sort of vociferous enough, right, to be to be like the place where people are like, I don't want to go there, right? As opposed to, oh man, we keep, I imagine like if I had to put myself in the shoes of like a Mexican player, it's like, oh man, we keep losing there. Like, what's up with that? Like this sucks. As opposed to, exactly. Oh crap, like when I'm right, when I'm there, like I can't hear myself think.
Yes. Totally.
And
this is possible. There are enough of us. It's finding, like, for me, that's part of the reason I'm so obsessed with this idea of like having a specific city, because then you can put roots in and you can say, okay, the US team is going to be here for 10 months trying to qualify for the World Cup. We're going to advertise it as if it's a club team. They can concentrate all their advertising, all their PR, all of their media into one market and just focus on like, all right, game 1, it's going to be like a normal US qualifier, but by game 7, we want this place to be rocking because we've gotten buy-in over time, like made investments in that location. And then you switch it up for next time, but that location forevermore is a US soccer, hotbed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe Atlanta.
And I mean, we've got all sorts of options. I think Atlanta's also turf, though, right? That's the other thing, right? Because like we've got all these huge stadiums.
Don't they can't they put grass for? Don't they put grass if Messi's coming? Right.
Yeah, I mean they'll put grass down for certain things, right? Yeah. Again, it's the question of the year. One of our advantages, right, in the U.S. is we've got these huge, like, NFL football stadiums that are only booked by the main occupants 8 Sundays a year.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's it,
Sundays, exactly.
And
the rest is Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi is like 50 times a year, and then it's empty outside of that.
Right. Yeah. Bon Jovi and
Taylor
Aerosmith. She plays the Barclays. So yeah, that's another long-term project. I don't know. They should put us in charge.
So it's not happening this time. So we'll take what we get in Columbus. I think it's gonna be a very good crowd. Columbus always brings it. But it would be tough to say as a Costa Rica fan that you're scared, or as a Costa Rica player that you're intimidated by the U.S. crowd in Columbus.
Yeah, and we'll have to see who's available
for everybody who's there. I mean, throw some urine. I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, this is not a knock on the Columbus fans or those who like go to like cheer on. The U.S. in Columbus, right? That has been a really important part of U.S. soccer. I think both for MLS and then also for the men's national team. But as we seek to grow, right, in this country, right, we think we'd like to be able to sort of expand that. Maybe we expand the Columbus Crew Stadium. Like I'm down for that.
Yeah,
take some U.S. soccer money. Expand
Matthew Hoppe upper deck.
That's right. Right.
Yeah, extra 20,000
capacity. You gotta hop up and down the entire game. If you hop up and down without stopping the entire game, it's free. But as soon as you stop hopping, you get booted out there, and someone else takes your spot.
Nice.
And you can't come back for like a year because you defiled the Matthew Hoppe hop stand.
All right, so I am pumped. We got to get 3 points. Come on, boys. Come on, Nats. Let's go. We got Wednesday, October 13th, United States versus Costa Rica, 7 p.m. We will be here on the live stream. It's going to be myself and my father, the professor, Mako Fujimura, live and direct from an undisclosed location in central New Jersey. We cannot wait to be with you. Join us for the stream. Chat with us on Twitter. Give us your predictions up on there, and can't wait to do it. Can't wait to do it again. Watch the Nats get back on track here. It sounded like you had one more point to make there.
No, I was gonna ask if you if there was a player that you most wanted to see that maybe do you feel he's either gotten underutilized.
I just mentioned Matthew Hoppe, but I love that dude. I mean, I can't believe we can't find a minute. Chris Richards is the same way, but Matthew Hoppe he's a game breaker. He just does. He's like the better Breck Shea. He doesn't even know what he's going to do out there. Love that guy.
Yeah.
Like I can't wait for him to start and go 90.
Good call.
All right. We will wrap it up. We will talk to you again on Wednesday. And as always, I love some things. I need to think of some things to love. What do I love? I love burritos. I love tacos, which are basically the same, just twisted around a little bit. Yeah. I love nachos, which is a burrito with the tortilla cut off and turned into tortilla chips with the burrito on top of it. But I don't love any of that shit as much as I love the Nats. Let's go, boys.
Let's go. Mexican food aficionados, please direct all your hate towards Ty.
All right. I'm ending the recording. All right, YouTube. Thank you for joining us. We got some questiones, got some chatter going. Ken says, tough to score in the first half when every game features a different team. Good point. That makes sense.
Well, but if you pick your best team, you hopefully have a team that can score in the first half.
Hopefully you do. Yes. Azteca has smog and elevation, but Costa Rica is the country where we have the worst record. Talking about the tough away games.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. And Ken is in Costa Rica right now. That is amazing.
Jealous. Would love to be in Costa Rica.
Pura vida, baby.
I mean, that's another reason why we really need to win this game. Is we have a lot of our tough games coming up.
The last window is Mexico and Costa Rica away.
So that's gnarly. So we've still, but just in terms of games that we've still got both games against Mexico. We've got Costa Rica away. We've got Canada away, which is really going to be tough, right? We need to start doing things.
BMO is actually a great example of what we're looking for, because it's like after the expansion, it's like 37K or something. Mm-hmm. It's not crazy capacity. It's not a football stadium, so they can pack it, right? And they do a good job. It has some weird conditions. It's got like the lake effect and the cold and everything. I bet they're going to do well at home this cycle, especially as it gets colder.
Yeah.
What did you think of Zarda's start after the Austin performance? We discussed that. We played like a MLS preseason game. True. Hoppe needs to look with the A squad. Fully agree. Hoppe and Weah interchanging between winger and striker.
I would love that. I think they have similar profiles in that sense, right? That I think both of them. I think Hoppe is more of a center forward than Weah, and Weah is more of a winger than Hoppe is, but both can do that. And if you get them overlapping each other and like sort of swapping and giving the defense sort of different looks as to who's where, it's beautiful.
Oh my God!
Could really, as far as like a changeup, as far as like a second string, I would have loved to see that more than Zardes, who I think Zardes is someone who you bring on in a game that you are dominating, who is somehow going to end up scoring on some weird touch in the box.
Yeah, it's like the situation is like, you're going to create chances, but you're not sure if you're going to put them away. I guess.
Yes.
You just bounce the ball, like literally just hammer the ball at this dude and hope it ricochets in the right direction. Yeah, also Hoppy and Wea would be an incredible like trance music group or something like that. Like I think they've got a future together. Either way,
Yeah.
soccer or not.
Yeah.
Panama knew Leggett loves the back pass and pressed and overplayed it. Interesting.
And who overplayed it? Sorry.
Leggett. That Leggett tends to, you know, receive the ball in midfield and then end up passing it backwards. And Ken says they were kind of expecting that.
Oh, Panama was present.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
And yeah, so we were talking about like what to do with the windows, and the question is like, do you go with strong, weak, strong, or do you go with medium, medium, medium in terms of your quality level?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I think you go strong, less strong, strong, you know?
That's cheating.
Well, again, I think, you know, we got a little bit unlucky with injuries, right? But you know, we also didn't bring in everyone that we could have, right? So, you know, so like, who did we leave out, right? So like, is Luca De La Torre like a better option if we're having trouble trading than the Jet? I don't know. I haven't seen enough of De La Torre, right? But you know, we didn't have much of a look. You know, we didn't bring Conrad, right?
Yeah, we didn't bring Conrad, and then someone was giving a couple other options. Scally, we discussed last time. Julian Green, who I never want to see anywhere close to a U.S. squad. I'm sorry. One of the Senoras is doing well.
Here's the thing. Are we good enough
Sargent
to never bring Julian Green again? I would like to think so, but evidence is somewhat to the contrary right now. And I'm sorry, that was
it hurts bad.
I just caused you organ damage. I'm sorry. I should have thought more carefully about my words. I mean, I think we are, right? But I think so, you know, if Weston didn't have the thigh injury, right? If we still had Gio and could pull him into the midfield, then, you know, those are two big midfield pieces. And again, I'm wishing upon a star that Berhalter ever acknowledges that Gio is probably a better midfielder than he is a winger for us, right? Or at least that at this point in time, we have better, the dip from Reina to any of our other options at winger is less than the dip from, you know, from Gio to like another sort of offensive midfielder.
Sure.
And that we have to be able to get more creativity out of the midfield.
Right.
So yeah, I'm okay with us not bringing Julian Green most of the time, but we're a little light, you know, and you know, I don't think that we should be leaving people out.
Sibachu is a really weird one, because the guy's red hot. He scored that winner against United. I think he scored in the league the next week, and then didn't get called in.
Right. Because
really
like,
bizarre.
Who are the center forwards we brought? We brought Pepe. We brought Zardes.
Yeah, it's just Pepe and Zardes, I think.
Yeah.
And then potentially Hoppy and Wea could play.
Right.
There.
Yeah, that's not. I think that's not enough, right? I think you got to bring one more at least, right? Sure. And whether it was Sivachu, whether it was Sargent, whether it was DK, I think you had to bring someone else, because I think it inflates. I think it inflates the reliability of Zardes to say, and of Pepe, right? I also think.
Sure. Yeah. True.
You know, we've seen Pepe has scored. You know, Pepe has scored 3 goals, right, in the last sort of 2 games, but he's 18. These were against the 2 worst teams in CONCACAF. And he was also, you know, not wholly, but largely, you know, sort of missing in the first half of both games.
Right.
So, I don't think it's reasonable for us to say we're leaning on Ricardo Pepi to score all our goals in these matches. Particularly against these sort of potentially tough CONCACAF defenders. And by tough, I mean like, put you on your butt,
Brutal.
right?
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
I expect him to get sort of knocked around a bit,
Yeah.
and can
Punk
he,
ass kid.
yeah, and can he, can he deal? Can we expect him to still make a sort of huge impact when the rest of the team isn't? I don't think that's fair. I don't think we should, kind of be all in. I think we should be delighted in what we found and continue to foster it and nurture it. But I don't think we're like, okay, we've seen enough. That's it. Because this is a point I wanted to make, right? People are super excited about Ricardo Pepi and the goals he scored for MLS. I want us to think back to what 19-year-old Josie Altidore was. He was a force.
He was electric.
He was, I mean, I can't,
Totally.
like, he was lighting up MLS, right? Confederations Cup against Spain in 2009. So right, this is Spain at its peak. They'd won the Euros. A year later, they would win the World Cup. Josie Altidore in that Confederations game against Spain, they could not handle him. Like, he tore them apart. And then he went on to like break the scoring record in like the Dutch league, right? So so I'm excited about Ricardo Pepi, but and I think Josie Altidore at his peak was a really, really good national team forward. But I don't want us to feel like we've discovered in Ricardo Pepi something that we have never, ever had before, or that he's clearly going to turn into, something transcendent. There's a long way to go, right? I mean, he's got another 5-6 years of doing this before he's Brian McBride level, right? And Brian McBride is incredibly good forward, right?
Legend.
I mean, legendary forward, right?
Yeah.
Hall of Famer. I mean, Premier League for years. Got beloved at Fulham. Got his bar there. Like it's it's a whole other thing. Got his face broken by Italy, and they respected him more for it. That's he's got enough to live up to.
You're putting some brakes on.
Pump the brakes on Ricardo Pepi. Like, I hope he's everything, but let's pump the brakes.
Ken asked, will Columbus cheer or boo their former coach? And MSB says that they will be in attendance and will boo.
Ooh, interesting.
That'll be very interesting.
That'll be interesting.
Boo the coach and cheer the team.
I mean, do we feel like that the tide has kind of turned? I will say, I mean, so I was listening to like the K Golasso podcast, right? Which is Heath Pierce and Jimmy Conrad. We're both buds and former teammates of Greg Berhalter. And like, I think it was Heath Pierce was like, they're like, I love Greg, but if we don't get a result in this game, I think we should be thinking about replacements. I don't think we should fire him, but I think we should have replacements lined up, or at least thinking about who that would be.
I think Greg has to be fired or one step away. But the trouble is like Jamaica did this with Theo Whitmore. That shit's not gonna change. Jamaica, are you kidding me? You're gonna like let the guy have 3 more games as a test to see if he can keep his job? It's like, by the time he's failed, it's going to be too late for you. So that's where this particular qualifying experience gets really high stakes, because you can't wait. It's 9 points of opportunity every single window. you know. So if he shows something really, really bad, I would not be opposed to letting him go. But I actually think that his mediocrity is going to end up being just fine. We're going to qualify in second, and then have a mediocre World Cup. But
I think if we get healthy, that's probably, I think we'll probably come in third. But I think that is probably the case.
oh my God.
My hope, well, I don't know if it's a hope, but I mean, I think that he should go. But I think part of the problem is that US soccer, if they were to get rid of him, I think are only going to consider American coaches. And
most likely, yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if that's.
Is Tab Ramos available? Is he still in Houston? Did that work?
I think he's still in Houston. I don't know how well it's been going at Houston. I think not super well.
That's a man who's made to coach the Nats.
I don't know.
He's right there. All right, I gotta burn through some questions here.
Okay. Yeah.
People were suggesting Minnesota potentially for the home cauldron. Decent shout. Does get snowy though.
Does get snowy and super cold. You know, yeah. I wonder if it gets to the point.
Super cold is good. I mean, super cold is good. If we're a predominantly Europe-based team, and we're playing predominantly, Central American MLS-based teams, I could see that.
December in Minnesota.
Worse for Costa Rica than it is for us.
Yeah, but are we
dealing with a bunch of German dudes?
Are we dealing with cancellations and stuff though?
Maybe.
I think it's a reasonable idea, but I think it's a reasonable idea. But I want to keep chewing on other ones.
I was also thinking about Florida because I feel like even the Mexican American community in Florida is not super dominant. Like there's a ton of Hispanic people, but they come from such a wide range of countries that I don't feel like there would be a one of the home games would be like a disaster for the US unless we're in Cuba or something.
Right.
But with the particular teams that are in the qualifiers.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Do you think how do we think Navas will do facing a grand total of 0 shots on goal? Oh boy.
That's right. We got to score on Keylor Navas, right? That's the other thing, right? It's like Costa Rica is waning in their powers, but Keylor Navas is not. So
Green has more World Cup goals than Roldan has goals for the US. Fair. Fair shout. And Prime Josie is clear of Zardes, no question. I have to agree with you there. Josie's wonderful. He was.
Oh, yeah.
He had a 4-year stretch where he was the bee's knees, but he just couldn't pull it together for the South Africa World Cup to make it.
Yeah, that blown hamstring.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, let alone the Brazil World Cup. All right, people.
All right, that was
thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. It means a lot. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. Just hit the little subscribe button down there, and you'll get a little ding whenever we go live. And we'll be back on Wednesday, chopping it up during the